Welcome back, class. Just to review on our layers, our final result, let me just stretch this up. We ended up with one threshold layer. You don't need more than one threshold layer, but it has to be at the top for it to work. We have a couple of levels adjustments, a couple of overlay adjustments, another levels adjustment, and then our duck. Very good. We're up to 35 whopping megabytes, so do watch out there. From here, we're going to save, and we're going to come back to our main image. I'm just going to close the smart object we're in, the duck PSB, and let's take a look. So far so good. Where do we go from there? Well, let's take a quick look and make sure we've done everything right. Using various intensities and opacities of black and white, use brushes to paint on the overlay white layer and watch how it affects the completed image. Use the levels adjustment layer and its masks to help with trouble spots. Well, we did that. If your image doesn't have a white background, make a white background layer at the bottom of the stack and merge down. I forgot to put that in the instructions. Watch out. Merge down the white layer. Don't merge down all of these. I need all these layers. But this image should just be the image. There shouldn't be a white layer underneath it. Okay, so we now have one smart object and one background. We're done. So we've saved our smart object and we're back in the main document. We're going to, well, actually, I'm going to show you what happens if you skip this step first. And this is one that a lot of students miss. So let me show you this mistake as I try carefully not to drop my instructions. Here we go. I'm going to make a colored background instead of this white background. And there are a few ways to do this. You could fill the whole thing with a color, you know, like that. But I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do instead is actually get rid of the background. And I'm going to create a new adjustment layer called solid color. Boom. And I'm going to go for a green. Because why not? A deep green. There we go. It's still kind of vivid. That looks more like a green you might see on a pool table. All right. So we've got this duck. Well, we've got this big white square. Not a problem. Click on the duck. Go to multiply mode. Voila. Look at that. My one regret is that the duck isn't actually bigger to fit in this area. So it might be worth it to come in here. We could do a transform, for example. Oops, I'm going to hold down the Alt key to extend it out from the center. Some versions of Photoshop, Shift will constrain it. Some versions of Photoshop, Shift will cause it to warp, so watch out for that. So now we've got this duck. Behold this duck. But let's see what else the instructions say. Try a colored image by setting the Smart Objects Layer Blending Mode to Screen, and try a white image by creating a clipped invert adjustment layer and setting the Smart Layers Blending Mode to Screen. What does all that mean? Well, let's go ahead and try those. So first things first, here's my duck. I'm going to go ahead and set the Objects Layers Blending Mode to Screen. Check this out. Screen. Now, this will only work if your smart object... If your smart object is big or bigger than your entire working space. Notice how I have this green line. That's because the duck, if we do a transformation, Control T. See, it's that white square again. We're just taking advantage of the fact that it's a white square and making it big enough to cover everything. But that gives us this, which is, behold, a color version of the duck on white, which is pretty nifty. I can dig it. I like it. So what's this other one? Try making a white image by creating a clipped inverted adjustment layer and setting the Smart Objects Layers Blending Mode to Screen. All right, well, we have the Smart Objects Blending Layer mode set to screen. What is the clipped invert? It's this. Click on the adjustment layer icon and notice that we have invert as one of our options. Whoa, look at that. But there's more. We can invert on just the pixels that exist. And so we do that with the clipping mode, which is an alt click. Boom. Pretty neat, right? So before, after. So essentially this black and white is turning white on black, and then this whole thing is set to screen, so it's leaving the white in there. So you have some options. With the invert mode, you can have it with the invert mode and screen, you can have it as white on a colored background. With just screen, you can have it a color image on white if you've got enough background to pull that off. You might have to go into your smart object and increase the size so that it will work with your crop tool. I showed you how to do that in earlier videos. Another option is multiply, which will, I think this is beautiful a lot of the times. Let's see what multiply with invert does. Whoa! It almost looks like a negative. So that might be fun too, depending on what you have going on there. Okay, so once you're happy with that, and life is good, you save it out, and you're good to go. I think my favorite one in this case, I'm just going to go with the classic for this one. So I'm going to throw away the other one. But not quite good to go. You need to shrink this down to the size that I recommend. I believe it's 150. Double check on the form. The form. Double check on your sheet to make sure. And that's available through the class site. So I'm just going to go image size, not 300, but a 150. And notice now, teeny tiny 7 megabyte document with the smart object still there. I don't need this color fills mask. I'm not using it, so I'm just going to throw it away. All right, so I'm going to save as so I don't lose my nice big one. Although we use smart objects and it was completely non-destructive. All of this was non-destructive. That means that you can re-increase the size and it'll be fine. Let's see, it was version 2. All right, so there are a couple of things that can go wrong. Let's see if I can quickly export the contents. Right click here, export the contents as a smart object file. Let's save. Check this out. So I'm going to open up my smart object file. I think it's, did I call that duck? Yeah, duck PSB. So this is essentially a duplicate of what's in here. It's not linked in any way. I'm just going to close that up real quick. Yeah, go ahead and save. It's fine. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to save as a kaboom, and not a large, but actually a PSD. Photoshop document. And we're going to call this oops. All right. So here's something that happens a lot with the students. This smart object is worth a lot of points. Please remember it. So what will sometimes happen is you guys will forget that you were supposed to create a smart object before you got going on everything else. What you're going to do at this point is not panic. Instead, you're going to click on either the topmost or bottommost layer on the layer stack, scroll to the other side, hold down the shift key, and that will let you select everything. With everything selected, right click anywhere in this gray area and go convert to smart object. All of those layers will be pushed into your smart object, and voila, the day is saved. So don't panic there. We'll call this duck. And don't forget, this is the other thing that gets students. The colored layer goes out here, not inside the smart object. So I'm going to create a solid color again. This time, let's go for a vivid red. And it doesn't have to be web safe. That's what this means. That would be web safe. It doesn't have to be CMYK safe. That's what that means. It can just be as vibrant as you feel. I kind of like the tone of this one. Tell it okay. Drag to the bottom. The third most forgotten thing is a mode. Don't set the actual duck inside of the smart object. I'm double clicking here and scrolling down. Don't set this one to anything other than normal. That stays normal. I close that and come return to the main document. This is where you set it to multiply or screen. And then you can add your invert layer if you want. And I'm going to get rid of this mask you're not using. You don't have to do that. It's fine. All right, that's it. That's the case. It's salvageable. Don't panic. And worst case scenario, you can open up smart objects and you can drag stuff over to the other tabs and you can drop things in places and it'll be fine. So you can always salvage this because it is a non-destructive way of working. So don't worry, just pick an image that you like. If you have problems cutting it out, I'm not going to know if you pick an easier image. I'm just going to see the end result. If you want to spend the time, that's cool too. Please do make your mask clean enough to work with this. Keep in mind that the threshold will be at the top. Don't put it anywhere else in the stack of your smart object. Threshold is only in the smart object at the top. You don't have two of them. That's redundant. You only have the one at the top. That's another big one that comes up. That will eliminate a lot of details a lot of the time. High contrast is kind of what you're looking for. Lots of little details, like in the case of the duck's feathers. And that's it. That's the document. Go ahead and upload that to class, and I will grade that. And that's got you set. You've now dealt with smart objects. So congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. They're an incredibly useful tool. Next week, we're going to cover the curves adjustment layer. We've been working with levels, but it's time to bring it up a notch. A lot of people tend to hate curves, but in truth, once you know the couple of really insane things that it does for reasons that boggles the mind, once you know those few things, it just opens a world of possibilities. You can actually ditch a handful of other tools and always just go to with curves. I think you're going to love it. I know I do, and I will see you next week. In the meanwhile, have fun with this assignment. Pick a picture you enjoy looking at so that you can enjoy looking at it the entire time. All right, signing off until next time. Have a good one.